Smith, and we like to attribute the definition that suits us to the words that we want to use. And so I wanted to find the perfect definition for the word spirituality in English. And I turned to the Oxford Dictionary, and it says that spirituality is relating to or affecting the human spirit as opposed to the material or physical things. And that immediately invoked in my mind some of the things I heard while growing up. That in the same way that you feed your body with food, with sustenance, with water, you need to feed your soul. And one of the ways of feeding your soul is through prayers and through dua, supplication. And so to me, I decided that for today's lecture, spirituality was going to be about dua, prayer, but not just the 5 daily prayers. I know those are obligatory and we are supposed to do them with the best niyyah, and they should be as spiritual as possible, but I feel like sometimes it might not be. Sometimes we just go through the actions. While with dua, it's not mandatory. So when you're doing it, you really are doing it with the intention of gaining something, feeling something, and there are no actions involved, so you really have to listen and reflect on what you're hearing. And so I pulled out one of my favorite dua books. It's called the Sahif al-Sajjadiyya. And it's a compilation of prayers, short prayers, by the great-grandson of the Prophet. And what's interesting about this copy is that there is a wonderful introduction by a Muslim scholar, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, where he talks about how this book came into development. And he says that at the time of Zayn al-Abidin, it was the era of al-Futuhat, the openings, the expansion of the Islamic Empire. And he describes 2 dangers that these expansions posed to the Islamic Empire. And one of those dangers was the opulence, the prosperity, the wealth that came with acquiring new land, acquiring gold, silver, trade, etc. And he says that Imam Zayn al-Abidin viewed that as a threat to the Islamic Empire because the more wealth you accumulate, the more attached you become to the dunya. And the further away from God you may become, further away from thinking about the akhirah that you may become. And his solution at the time was this book, was a book of prayers, of supplications, that were meant to feed the soul rather than feed the body. And hopefully you see some similarities with today's society, especially here in the United States. I think it's no surprise that we live in an age of consumerism, of materialism. We just had Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and if any of you participated in that, I'm not judging you. I was very tempted to buy some shoes, but resisted. And, but not for spiritual reasons. I just don't have money as a student. So yeah, I think that it's very apt to make comparisons between that time and the society that we live in today, this very consumer-driven American society. I read one of the statistics, and I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of them, that the United States makes up less than 5% of the population, and yet we consume more than 33% of the world's resources. And those are very dramatic statistics, but what is more disheartening is the fact that Americans tend to also be some of the most unhappy people in the world. And that's evidenced by antidepressants, the turn to self-help books, etc. And I think that this is where we as Muslims can really turn to our own religion to find sort of solace. How can we solve this problem of materialism or consumerism, or making sure that we don't become attached to this dunya? Because we have been blessed by being in the United States. We do have access to a wealth of knowledge, of material goods, and it is a blessing, but at the same time it comes with the responsibility of ensuring that it doesn't affect our akhirah. And I think one of my favorite quotes from the Prophet is, "عَمَلِ دُنْيَاكَ كَأَنَّكَ تَعِيشُ أَبَدًا وَعَمَلِ آخِرَتِكَ كَأَنَّكَ تَمُوتُ غَدًا." So do for this life as if you're going to live forever, but work for the afterlife as if you're going to die tomorrow. It's all about moderation in Islam, which I think is starkly contrasts the image of Islam in the media of extremism and radicalism. And so I think, sort of to conclude, or the point that I want to get across is just that as Muslims here in the United States, we really should take advantage of not just the Quran, not just of our daily prayers, but of these supplications that we have at our hands that can be used to nourish our soul, to ensure that we work for this life, but also for the afterlife, and that we maintain that balance throughout our daily lives. So I hope that, I know I did not present anything new necessarily, but I do hope that it was just a reminder, especially in light of Cyber Friday and Christmas that's coming up and New Year's, of keeping that moderation and for working towards the afterlife, still enjoying this one. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
So are you going to give us some of these du'as or no?
Well,
What is your favorite one?
my favorite one is Makarimul Akhlaq, which means the kind of noble moral traits. And the reason I like it is because I actually enjoy reading self-help blogs and self-help books. And that dua sort of functions as a self-help dua. Because it basically outlines what are the moral characteristics that you should have as a Muslim. And there's also another quote by the Prophet that says, the most complete among you believers is the one who has the best manners. And so I think that it's important because being Muslim, I was in France last year, and one of the things that I heard a lot was, I'm Muslim, but I'm not practicing. And I mean, not to be judgmental, to each their own, but I think that part of the tenets of Islam is that your spiritualness is supposed to affect how you act and how you treat others and how you engage with society. I think that's an important part of being a Muslim. I find it hard to be Muslim or to believe in Islam, but to not allow it to permeate your daily life. And so that dua in particular is very good because I think it highlights the attributes that are most important to being a noble person. And I say noble, I don't mean to be the best Muslim, but to be the best human being, to be the most moral, to be the most good human being you can be. And hopefully if you do, strive towards those attributes, then it'll allow you to function in this world and to contribute to this world positively, which is ultimately what I think Islam is meant to do. I think that the rules are not meant to hinder us, they're not meant to throw us back into the Middle Ages by any means. Islam is meant to sort of help human beings evolve to the best of their capacity and to be the best that they can be. And so that is one that is particularly dear to me. But there's a lot, and I do think that it does function as sort of a self-help book. And if you ever feel like, maybe I don't want to say that Quran or prayers are not enough, but I think for me spirituality invokes a type of emotion, a type of feeling. And that is something that you can definitely get from these types of supplications. And there are so many of them that you can find online too, not just in books. And so I highly encourage those who haven't had the chance to read them to really look into that.
Thank you. Hadia, can I have the book? Thank you. By the way, there's an app about it you can download on your iPhone. So away from materialism to materialism. I love it. This book of supplication is quite amazing. And I do it on my way home when you have an hour and a half driving every day to recite it. Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmika. Oh God, I seek refuge in you, seeking your knowledge. And I come under your refuge through your knowledge and with your knowledge. I love that. Oh God, the best form of gratitude is the form for me to know that you are there, have always been and will continue to be. Make me an agent of yours in my surroundings and an agent of yours to myself and an agent of yours back to you. Quite amazing. Oh God, forgive me, forgive us, and through your mercy, allow me to bring mercy to those who come to know your mercy. Quite amazing. So, thank you, Hadia. She's a law school student, as we said, about to graduate. You can tell she will make a good lawyer. She knows how to talk and how to impress people. So, our Khatib is here, Brother Tarif, who's about to impress us again. He's not a lawyer, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. Inshallah. تفضل.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله